Ever wanted to build a horizontal slider like this that can be controlled by mouse scrolling, whether it's for showcasing your portfolio, case studies or product galleries, whatever you need. In this video, you'll learn how to do it in just a few minutes. The cool thing is this section can be as narrow or as wide as you want, filled with just a few slides or as many as you like, and it will always work, even on different devices. Why? Because it automatically calculates its width. Before we dive in, a quick shortcut: you can download the templates for Bricks and Bricksforge using the link in the description. Alright, let's get to work, and trust me, it'll be easy. We have 3 sections: a hero section, a section for the horizontal scroll, and a footer section. The first and the last sections are super simple. They just contain a container with 100 UH height and a heading. The second section is where the horizontal scroll magic happens, and even simpler. I just gave it a black background color to prevent any white areas. Now that we've set up the other structure, let's focus on the stuff inside the second section. It has a container also with a height of 100 VH, but the important thing is to set the container's min width to max content, because then it will stretch as wide as the overlapping content inside. For the slider content, I'm using a grid with 6 blocks or slides and a width of 440 pixels and a height of 680 pixels. And I added a 40 pixels row gap and also 40 pixels of padding to give it some breathing room. And then I added the blocks with text and the gradient and some basic stylings. With the design set, it's time to bring it to life with animations now. Okay, we open the panel, we go to timelines, we create a new one. You see, I already did. Then we choose the trigger. You can leave the scroll trigger selected. Then we need a trigger selector and tell GSAP or Bricksforge which section to monitor. This will be our horizontal scroll section, and we just copy the ID. I renamed it to better understand it. And with that in place, we now want to pin this section. That means when we have scrolled down to the second section, we want to fix it. So we turn on the pin function and also tell which selector to watch or which selector to pin. And then we can also turn on the marker so we see what we do in the front end. And now we need to tell GSAP or Bricksforge when to pin it. And we define when the top of this second section reaches the top of the viewport, then please pin it. And you should unpin it then after we scroll through the horizontal part when the bottom of this section reaches the top, so we can leave the default here. And you will see what it means when I show it to you in the front end. So now all this will work and function as soon as we define an animation, which we will do in a second. But with the basics in place, let's now bring the scrolling to life. We need to figure out exactly how far we want our slider to move. Let's jump into calculating the scroll distance. Alright, let's create an animation. I have done that already. We use our section ID for the trigger to animate. That's one click. And for the scrolling, we could try the translate function and input a negative percentage to scroll to the right. But that won't never work as expected. Instead, we should calculate the scroll distance in pixels. Let's do that. Our columns are 440 pixels wide, and we have 6 of them. There is a 40 pixel column gap between them. 5 gaps for 5 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus we have the 40 pixels of padding on both sides. So this adds up to 2920 pixels. But since we don't need to scroll the visible part of the viewport, it's this one, we subtract it from the total viewport width, which is this. But you might understand it better if we look at this overview example. You can see the hero section, first section, this is the second section, and this is the third section. And this is what we just have calculated, 2920 pixels. And this is the viewport size, which can always vary. And also this can then vary But we can query a browser variable that always gives us the correct result. And we do this with a small code snippet, which sits right here at the end of the container. You can find it also in the video description. This snippet queries the browser width, calculates the scroll distance, and the result we can now tell to GSAP so it knows how far to scroll. At first, we're gonna copy the name of the variable scrollDistance from the code snippet, copy it, open the panel. Then let's go to the animation object. Then we insert two curly brackets because all we write inside these. Then we start with an X because we're gonna scroll on the X-axis. Then, and it's important, we input two backticks, not exclamation marks, not a single quote. Then we're gonna write minus because we want to scroll to the right. Then we add a $sign because we're going to insert the name of a variable, and this we do inside another curly brackets. Then we paste the name of the variable. Then let's not forget it's pixels inside the backticks and inside the final curly bracket. Now we're ready. Let's save and check the front end. So let's check this out. When I scroll down, we can see the start marker coming up, and when the top of the second section reaches the top of the viewport, then it should be pinned and scrolled automatically to the right, which it does almost, I would say. Let me check. There's one mistake because what we didn't see is the right padding. This must be a mistake in the code, and here it is in the code snippet because we have 5 of these gaps and 2 of the padding, so this makes 7. If we save and check the front end and try it now it works perfectly. So now when I scroll further on, I can see the end marker coming up, and when it reaches the top of the viewport, then the second section gets unpinned and we can scroll down. Wonderful. So if we go up again, nothing happens because we would have to tell GSAP what to do in this case. But we do something different. We turn on the scrub function, which makes it possible to scroll the slides with the mouse. And if it gets now pinned, you can see that I can control it with my mouse. And if I go down and up again, this works also backwards automatically. This is wonderful. And even more, when I now resize the viewport and refresh, then everything still works fine. And even if we go a little bit smaller and refresh, it still should work. Yes, wonderful. And I have one tip for you. If you want to slow down the scroll speed, you could input plus equals and not 100%, that's the recent scroll speed, like 100% of the browser height. Now if we say 200, then the user has to scroll double the amount, and this makes it more slow. In contrary, you could say 50%, and then the user has to scroll far less. But this is up to you. Now that everything is working well, let's see how flexible this slider is. Okay, let's add another slide. First, I'll increase the number of columns in our grid. Then I duplicate one of the blocks and label it slide 7. Next, we need to update the scroll distance calculation in our code snippet to account for the new slide. It's now 7 times 440 pixels plus 8 gaps of 40 pixels plus the 2 paddings makes 8. Let's save and test it again. There it is, and there it works. Wonderful! Let's see also how this works on a different device size. Here it doesn't because we need to refresh. Let's make it a little bit slower. Or we can go with the default. The slider now works with 7 slides because it always updates dynamically. And we're almost done, but let's do a final tweak. Make sure to turn off the markers we used to debug or to see what we do in the front end. And the second thing is, still in the front end, you could do this and move the whole body of the page. So let's go to the templates and page settings, and here I just deactivate the comment. But please write HTML body overflow X hidden important. If you do this, then you can't move it and it works perfectly and stable on all device sizes. That's it. Now you're ready to go, or better yet, ready to slide. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and see you in one of my other videos.